Darn, it might just be the five of us tonight because Jacqueline is on. She's just there. Is Shannon showing up?
I expect her to, yes.
Okay, great. Because I have a really good, that thing that I told you that I had to fix for the video. I fixed it. I did it. I got it. She's on. She's just there. Is Shannon showing up? I will mute that. Because I have a. There we go.
Okay. Well, would you like us to get started, Blair?
Yes, please.
Would you put up the announcement page, please?
Right. I was supposed to get that up earlier. It will be a moment, but I will. And here we are. And I am going to, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, for announcements tonight, this is the Blair Dunkley Experience. Our topic tonight is about what about the why we believe. Before we get started on that, we'd like to make a few announcements. Blair is offering in-person My Model Method coach training in Arizona, January 5th through the 8th and 13th through the 16th. He has the podcast for My Model Mastery Secrets Monday and Thursday. Thursday is a follow-up to what we do on Tuesday nights and goes deeper, and Monday is a separate topic on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. We also have My Model Minutes podcast, which is YouTube, and Blair is offering a free profiling session, which is just fascinating if you haven't participated in one of those. It's usually something that he charges a valuable price for. And linkedin.com slash what is it slash in slash Blair Dunkley 1,
Yes.
the
Mhm.
message profile, and take advantage of that while that's available. So with that, I think we'll go to our introduction. So welcome to the
I don't know what caused that to occur.
I'm not sure either.
Just let me, going to stop sharing and I'm going to,
YouTube still looks green, but I don't know about the recording.
yeah, exactly. Fathom looks like it's going still. So I will, let's continue.
Okay.
I think it's just 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's continue on. I believe we're getting it.
Okay. Welcome to the 369th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of Mind Models. The BDE, which we refer to Blair Dunkley Experience, is Blair's free gift to you and is the opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe real-world environment. Personally, mind models helped me overcome more than a decade of depression. They've positively impacted every area of my life, including my relationship with myself. We look forward to learning with you tonight and welcome you to the BDE. Blair, would you like to give us our intro video?
Yes, I would. In fact, this is sort of what we are covering off now. Unbeknownst to you, and me, sort of, when I plugged all of our stuff in, creating the insider notes um, that you guys can get, and we'll tell you how to get that at the end of the podcast. Um, the when I was constructing everything, a new title popped up. And because it was basically the why of everything on the belief, but there's the opposite side that we were focusing in our content. And when we built this out, Patty, and it's all about behavior. So the title of this is called Behavior, the True Driver of Beliefs.
Mm.
So just to fill you in. Okay, with that, I will jump on here and share with you um, exactly what yeah, right here. Now, I believe I have not set up anything, and here we go.
Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so let's be real. Have you ever tried to think positive your way into a new habit, only to find yourself, right back where you started a week later? Today, we're digging into a pretty radical idea. What if we've been trying to change all wrong? So let's get right to the heart of it. What really comes first? Is it belief or is it behavior? Do we have to think our way into taking new actions, or do we actually act our way into a whole new way of thinking? Conventional wisdom has a very clear answer, but you might be surprised where the evidence actually points. You've basically got two camps here. On one side, there's the mindset approach. You know this one. It's all about positive affirmations, vision boards, telling yourself you're a confident person. But then there's the other side, the behavioral approach. This one says, forget the talk for a second. The secret to becoming confident isn't in the thought, it's in the action. Okay, so if the mindset stuff is everywhere, why does it so often leave us feeling stuck? Or sometimes even a little bit like a fraud? Let's unpack this mindset paradox. Well, according to our source material, you've likely fallen into what's called the incongruency trap. And it's that really jarring, uncomfortable feeling you get when the new story you're trying to tell yourself just doesn't match the life you're actually living. And this is really where it all breaks down. Let's say you stand in the mirror and say, I am a disciplined person. But then you immediately hit the snooze button 3 times. See, your brain isn't dumb, it's a logic engine. It sees this huge contradiction and basically says, yeah, nice try, but the evidence doesn't support the claim. So it rejects the new belief because you haven't given it any real proof. All right, so let's get to the good stuff, the solution. It all starts by flipping this entire script on its head. Instead of trying to think your way into a new you, you're going to act your way into it. I love this quote because it just nails it. A belief isn't just some random thought floating around in your head, it's an opinion that you've actually placed a bet on with your time, your energy, your action. You don't just think you're a runner, you become a runner by actually running. The belief is forged in the fire of doing. And if you need more convincing, just look at the data from our source. It is absolutely staggering. Trying to change your life through mindset alone, it has a tiny 1% success rate. 1%! But when you shift your focus to changing your behavior, the effectiveness just skyrockets to 80%. That's not just a small improvement, that is a complete game changer. Okay, so this all sounds great, but how do we, actually do it? Well, the source material gives us some really practical tools called mind models that are designed specifically to help us make this shift from thinking to doing. The first tool is a simple framework they call MMIBR. And don't worry about the acronym. Just think of it like this. It's a way to become a scientist of your own life. It's a simple, repeatable process for running little experiments on your actions to see what actually works. And here's how it works. It's just 4 simple steps. You start with an intention, like, I want to be more focused at work. Then you pick a specific behavior to test. Okay, for 1 hour, I'll turn off my phone notifications. Then you evaluate what happened and you get a real result. Wow, I finished that report 20 minutes faster. Now you've got actual data, hard evidence to start updating your belief system. So now that you're running these little experiments and collecting all this data, the next part is absolutely crucial. How do you analyze it? This next model is designed to help you look at your results like a scientist would, not like a self-critic. It's called the 3 E's, and it's all about shifting your focus away from questions like, was I good or bad, and toward a much simpler question, was my action effective? It forces you to look at the external observable reality, not your internal feelings about it, and it demands an evaluation based on data, not a bunch of stories or excuses. And here's why these tools are so incredibly powerful. They help you escape one of the biggest, deepest traps in personal development, which is asking the completely wrong question. According to the source, whenever we ask the question why, as in, why can't I ever stick to this plan, we're not actually looking for a solution. Nope, we're usually looking for a justification. It's a question that automatically chains us to our past failures and all the emotions that come with them. And just like that, you're in what the source calls the why hole. It's that endless spiral of self analysis where you just keep asking, why am I like this over and over again? You're not looking for a way out, you're just digging yourself deeper into the mud of old stories. So, what's the solution? It's so simple. Just change the question you're asking. Instead of that dead end, why am I like this? You start asking things like, what can I do about this right now? Or how can I test a new behavior? These questions are about the present. They lead to action, and most importantly, they generate that precious data you need to actually change. Okay, so we've covered a lot. If you only remember one single thing from all this, what should it be? It's this. Your beliefs don't change because you yell at them or try to force them. They aren't these stubborn things you have to wrestle into submission. They just update automatically based on the new compelling evidence you give them through your actions. You don't convince yourself you're a runner, you just go for a run, and then another. And pretty soon, the belief just shows up. So I'll leave you with this challenge. Forget about trying to change your mind for a moment. Instead, ask yourself, what is one small, tiny, testable action you can take today to start gathering some new data and start building a new belief from the ground up?
Okay. Thank you, Blair. That's an overview. Oh, Shane, welcome. And Zach, welcome. Shannon, good to see you all here. We've missed you, Shane. I hope Christy as well.
Hmm.
So, my word nerd self, I love definitions. We're going to start with what is a belief? So, Brent, what's a belief?
Oh man, you have me with the definitions here. Uh,
Well,
without looking it up,
if somebody asks you about a belief, what do you think it is? You're answering their question. What is a belief?
it's an internal perspective, like a point of view of something, aspects you, uh, not more than thoughts, but like in a stand, like to me, it's a stance you take, but opinion on, uh, it's your perspective on something you.
Is a belief more than
Oh.
an opinion?
Yeah. I'm trying to work through
Okay,
this a
I'm
bit,
just
but
asking.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I never really thought about it. I just know to define it. You have a belief, you know what the belief is, but to define it verbally is a
It's a
little
tricky
different.
bugger, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Leslie, what's a belief?
A belief is something that you value, you hold to be true. Uh, it is a perspective, uh, something that you have probably considered at length or maybe even studied um, to come to a resolve that this is an accurate thought process.
Would you say that a belief is different than knowledge or science?
Uh, yes, because you may, well, as we've gone over the last couple of years, the science that has been presented has not always been based on actual knowledge. It's been fabricated. Um, and you may have knowledge of something, but it may not be a perspective that you agree with. and therefore you cannot establish it as a belief.
Interesting. Zach, what's a belief?
It's it's like a repeated a repeated thought based on life experience that your brain basically continues to find more and more evidence of, which further solidifies the belief itself.
So you're talking more about a cyclical process of how they develop then. You have
Yeah.
experiences, your experiences give you some type of result, and then you're forming a belief about that, but then your belief drives more of your behavior. Jacqueline, would you like to try the question? What's a belief?
You know what? I had a belief that if I turned on my camera, you'd ask me a question, and I didn't try to check it out, but it happened. I just
Well, you're
oh my
testing your
God,
belief.
I-
Yes, you're testing your belief. How'd it come out, Jacqueline?
well, it's true. Anyway, a belief. What do I think a belief is? Something I believe to be true. Something that shapes behaviors, attitudes. What else is a belief? Something I feel strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's about it, I think.
So in my digging, it's the assent of a mind to the truth of something, whether it's a declaration, a proposition, a fact based on evidence, but your mind is assenting to it being true. A belief can also be founded on internal impressions. As Brent was saying, there's an internal aspect to that, or arguments or reasons furnished by our own minds. This is where it crosses over with the why hole, because why holes then can result in a set of beliefs that we may or may not be consciously aware of. So we behave to what it is we believe, and we behave to the meanings of words. So our behavior follows a couple of pathways here. Colin gave us an example that if the belief is, for example, I'm not good enough, the origin of the belief could be experiencing a teacher's criticism or social rejection. The emotion then maybe shame, fear of failure. The behavior is avoiding risk and self-sabotage or perfectionism. Is it true though? The answer is not necessarily, but it feels true. And that's enough to let it run the show until you challenge it and test it. So, Blair, would you like to weigh in on that?
Absolutely. There are a number of things that we form as our belief, we hold as true without necessarily having ample evidence of the truth of it. And that's something that is very belief-based. I believe in God, but I don't have externally verifiable evidence per se. I have inference, but not evidence. So that's an interesting thought. If you had externally verifiable evidence, would would that give a different um, approach or validation for that belief? I personally think that it would, because there is evidence of that. But now there's just inference of that. It's inferred that it's true. And that's fine. No, like, no big problem until something happens. But one of those things that happens to us is we hold our belief as true, and we wind up getting ourselves, especially about ourselves, as not being capable. Um, like in Colin's example of I'm not good enough. that creates what's referred to as a limiting belief. And that limiting belief holds us to that cap of whatever that is, and that's where we stay. And
So
that's,
how are opinions different from beliefs?
well, it depends on the person that you talk to and how strongly they hold their belief. Some people call things that I would personally call an opinion as that's what I believe. But they use the terminology of belief as a power weapon to sort of say, this is my belief. And, basically somebody can't challenge it because it's their belief. And that's an interesting model because if you do that to yourself, you're really capping your own ability to grow or change or examine how we are.
Interesting. So, Zach, where do you think beliefs come from?
Oof. It kind of sounds like we're talking about different types of beliefs.
There are different types. If you think of, like, Blair's God belief is like a big, big thing, or I'm not good enough is a much smaller thing.
Mhm.
So, and you put in the chat ineffective beliefs. There are beliefs that don't work for us. And until we name and label those to know exactly what they are, yeah, Jacqueline, everywhere and nowhere. So until we label those, name and label those, we don't know what it is that we're facing. And how do we know whether they're true? So where do you think that beliefs come from?
Well, based on the video, behavior.
Okay. Yeah, behaviors evolve into beliefs, and beliefs create behaviors. They're functionally or behaviorally inseparable from one another. But where else do beliefs come from?
Other
People
people.
around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly get them from other people. There is a generational influence with certain beliefs. Their attitudes, feelings, there's culture. There are a lot of things
Yeah.
that feed into beliefs and belief systems, and we behave to those.
When
Something is, yes,
some,
Blair, go ahead.
some of the research that was done back in the day around 9/11, that actually was one of the most precise moments where history and culture uh, collided, and sociologists were able to start identifying people born prior to 9/11 and people born post 9/11. The post 9/11 babies brought up, like this is like 10 years later or so, they realized that these children, when they're testing them, how they perceive the world is very different than people that were around pre 9/11. So your environment embeds belief, but the environment is based on behaviors as well. So we
I was going to
just,
say, with that example, you could probably say the same thing with they're discovering right now that the babies born during the COVID shutdown, they're
yes,
just starting to enter preschool, kindergarten, that age group, and discovering that they're very different
hmm,
than children who came prior to that without having had that experience.
exactly. These
And
are
those
all,
weren't experiences that they chose. That was just, as you were saying, that's the environment that they lived in.
that's right. And personally, I know that I'm fudging the line here a little bit here, but to me, those are social behaviors that they lived through, like how people changed their behaviors, how society changed. Those things are the things that um, create how we perceive and how we are in our lives. And that's quite significant.
So, in a sense, then, safety, a felt sense of safety, can be belief driven
Oh, yeah.
as opposed to evaluating what's real. So, if you have a felt sense of being unsafe and you own that as a belief, you behave to that
Hmm.
being unsafe, which can lead to things like isolation or depression
Yes,
or in some ways aggression. There's an
absolutely.
aggression for self-protection, some of those kinds of things that are not necessarily the same cross generationally.
Well, prior to 9/11, there were a number of studies that were done and focused on news um, outlets. And it was very interesting to see. The facts of the situation is that the world was getting to be a safer place, actually, back then, prior to 9/11. And but most media, because they have to sell newspapers and sell ad space and everything else. So the more sensational things are, the more eyes it'll catch, and it'll trigger sales as such, or viewership. Anyway, at that point, the actual numbers of crime per thousand was going down. um, Generally around the world. Uh, in some places the crime was going up, but the majority of places around the globe, crime was going down, and the world was becoming a safer place. Then we had 9/11, and everything pivoted at that point. And part of that pivot was the how society viewed themselves and safety. And so that becomes an issue. So you're right about what you're talking about there. So those are issues that address, sociological issues. And we need to be at least moderately aware of that, that we can adjust or create beliefs around that may or may not be fully accurate. And sometimes we create false beliefs of us being safe when we're not. And other times we create false beliefs that we are not safe when we actually are. So both ways could work.
So, just taking that particular example, how how do you evaluate? What's your process for evaluating a belief to see if it's accurate or not? I'd like to hear from Brent. How do you evaluate a belief to see if it's accurate?
Well,
Do you?
I'm, yeah, test it. Like if I believe something, is it, is what I'm believing true? Do these things happen? Is this actually happening? Verifying it from external sources, asking
So
other people, looking around.
you're also talking about being very present with it.
Yeah, being, yeah, present in the moment, looking and understanding that that you're aware that this is a belief. You have the awareness. You go into, we have an NANPU, so your awareness notice and your
Mhm.
process of, and then evaluating. So asking and then asking questions, is this true? And then test that thought by, well, a belief would be based off your behaviors, or if you're behaving that way, are your behaviors aligned with what you're your beliefs, or if is that the direction you want to go. So you evaluate your behaviors, but also depending on the belief, external sources. If it's things are going, say you have a belief on something that's outside of you, like I mean, more of a larger view, country view or world view, to look for sources that are reputable to see if that's to evaluate against where that information's coming from. Is that true? So you can, so are your beliefs based off of truth or something that's not true? So,
You. Shannon,
yeah.
may I ask you a question? You up for it tonight?
Go for it.
Okay. What is the influence of belief on identity?
Significant, incredibly significant. And I think that what you talked about earlier, teasing apart, when you become an adult, you start to tease apart what do I know about myself and where did that come from? And do I believe that to be true? It's a weird process of teasing out the influences that got you to that point. And in deciding, I think the alignment process is significant here. Do I still align? Are these in alignment with what I know about myself? You have to do some pretty intense compare and contrast between internal and external, and I think self-confidence plays a significant role there. In terms of the building of that, you know, looking honestly at the things that you have done, the skills, attitudes, and behaviors that you can self-identify and use those things to carry you forward and help to kind of filter out some of the things that maybe people said about you or things that you don't choose to align with anymore. Some of those things, I mean, it can be effective and ineffective. There are things that we, hear that do help build us up and take us to effective places. But I think the opposite gets more press in terms of, we've all had someone put a name and label on us that, is inaccurate. And I think the tools as you grow to carefully evaluate your beliefs and decide, do these outside sources, and it's weighing and balancing how much weight do I put on this source versus this source and things of that nature. It's not simple, but it's significant.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's fair. Jackie put in the chat the opinion. She thinks beliefs are closely related to assumptions.
Mm.
And Blair, what do you think? Beliefs closely related to assumptions?
Some of them are.
The
because-
mind models, assumptions stop knowing, ASK.
Yeah, some of them are. But we do need to make some level of assumptions because we can't always know enough to always act on information. So at some point, we have to take a risk. We have to figure out and go forward in spite of the lack of information because we don't absolutely know what's going to happen next. So we make assumptions. We make assumptions that are calculated risks in some cases. And by doing that, we can start assessing and playing probabilities.
Mm.
I mean, that's what you do, Zach, and that's sort of what your company does is it plays the probabilities of things and we make the best guess based on probabilistic information, but we don't know for a fact whether or not things move forward or not. But if we have something that puts the odds in our favor,
Mhm.
it really, like mind models do, if we're going with mindset, and mindset's proven to only be effective 1% of the time, and mind models 80% of the time, nothing's like both of them are probabilistic, but one has way more probability of being able to actually work out for you on a more predictable basis. And so that's the difference. So where do you want to put your weight? Yeah, occasionally mindset works. And I used to train people in mindset before my mindset broke. So um, that's a whole different story. But the and that was actually the driver that caused me to work at developing the mind models because I needed something that wasn't so easily broken and it could work when I needed my mindset the most. I needed something to actually work when times were difficult and when I couldn't sort of see my way through. And that's where, in building the mind models, understanding and identifying identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable skills, attitudes, and behaviors that work 80% of the time after you've learned it the first time, that's pretty reliable. And I'll take those odds because I can figure my way out of things because things may or may not work out well, but I need something that has better than a 99% chance of being wrong.
The
So,
interesting thing in a contrast is that mindset requires that you start with a belief.
yes.
You can pick that out of thin air. It may or may not have any evidentiary basis. It may just be the fantasy you that you want to see in the future, and then somehow you're supposed to behave to that. Whereas with my models don't require you to believe anything.
Exactly.
The there really is no belief aspect to my models. So they are only processes.
Mhm.
And I
That was
don't mean to
actually,
minimize those, but they are processes. So they don't care whether you believe in them for them to work. It
Yep.
just doesn't matter.
that
Yes.
was actually the thing that made my models really safe feeling to try, is because in a sense the other sets you up for judgment, self-judgment, or
Yep.
judgment from others right away from the start. And it really felt like when I heard Blair, when I heard you speak on that the very first time, it was like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And I was like, I could actually play with these and test them and try them out and do them. And it didn't really matter. It allowed me to go access something deeper in myself, my work ethic, the part of me that really wanted to keep pushing, but the part of me that was weary and discouraged by life, I could park that and I could just go with doing.
Mhm.
And that made it a really safe and effective risk to take. It balanced out the risk, trust, honesty triangle in a great way so that I could play around with them, and there was no fear of judgment on the other side. And all there was results. Like you started at the beginning with was Iber, I had an intention, and then then I behaved to it, and then I could evaluate it and see what happened.
Mhm.
Look at the result and do that again and do that again. And the somewhat clinical nature of that particular tool really propelled me forward in a way that allowed my mental health to come along when it was ready. Like,
Can I was working with a client earlier today, and this part engaged. And I wanted to also point out that it was clinical, but did you notice that you started smiling and laughing?
mhm,
So those are emotions. And I go, okay, so when you're building a belief, you wind up building this thing in your mind. Um, and you start believing it and you smile at the belief. But when you try living it, it rarely lives up to expectations and you don't feel good about doing it. But when you actually use the mind models, and I used to coach, I've coached four pre-Olympic athletes in my career. And one of them was a downhill racer, ski racer. And they were taught how to visualize the hill. And their coach was talking about visualize, see yourself going through there. And how do you feel at the bottom? Like, and it's like they felt very like solid, good, happy, ecstatic. They felt really in control. And so all of a sudden, you got all of these things, but as they visualized more during the visualization, they would notice that they didn't have a big feeling. What they had that was huge, actually, very important, was this whole thing of calmness. And when they actually were doing their very best work, one of them who actually had won some races before, and in a previous situation. Anyway, the bottom line here was they said when they're on, they don't their mind goes to this calm sort of blank state where they're riding in this body going down the hill, almost observing themselves going down the hill as their body is just reacting and doing everything practically through muscle memory. Okay, like the body is just doing its thing, and they're not super thinking about everything. They're not trying to overthink it. They're just doing it, and they're in the zone. And when they're in the zone, and I used to play back in university, I used to play foosball. And when I would get in the zone and I was goalie, my whole visual area would zone down so that I'd see black, literally black in a few occasions, and just the white ball. And that's the only thing that I saw. And I mean, I was aware of everything else, sort of, but in my brain, it was black and white ball. And that's when I was like, for that couple of games, I was unstoppable because I was so in the zone. My body was just reacting and it felt calm. And most people throw calm out. If you're being calm, well, that's not a real feeling. But I'm sorry, it actually is. And it's a big one because when you're on, you usually are feeling calm and not stressed and not elated, not sad, not angry, but calm, just at peace. And you're just doing your thing, and that's it. And your body's in alignment. So I just wanted to build on what you were saying there, Shannon, and go, your body will do it, and it will seem clinical on the outside, but when you're fully engaged like that, at that high level, um, your behaviors and your emotions are in this state of what I call oneness, and you're just integrated going like down the hill playing foosball, whatever it is, you're in the zone. And the zone feels like you're in the zone and you're behaving in the zone. So it's this whole integrated self thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Zach,
I
go
have
ahead.
a question slash thought anyway. So
Oh.
there's a book called In the Zone, by the way. It's pretty good. Anyway, so basically, this is way oversimplifying it, but
Please go ahead.
a belief is more or less an opinion with pride, but not necessarily ineffective. But for example, my young 5-year-old daughter, for the first 5 years of her life, refused to try grilled chicken. Refused. I don't care if it's like chicken nuggets just without the breading. Like it doesn't matter. Refused to take it. She had this belief, opinion with pride, that it's gonna taste nasty. Until introducing behaviors, just try it. Just test it. What do you have to lose? One little bite. You have some water, you can drink it down. If you don't like it, spit it out. If you don't like it, just try it. She tries it, and all of a sudden her belief drastically changed, obviously, because grilled chicken is delicious. Right. So is kind of all beliefs similar to that? I mean, that's a silly example. It
No,
gets
it's not silly at all. And yes, those are, I wouldn't say absolutely all,
okay.
but most beliefs. Like, okay, the thing here is that was very much of a physical behavior. Okay, and it worked. And that's very handy for those physical type of behaviors. But some of the things are where you're sort of beating yourself up and you're going, I'm not a very good person. I'm not a very good person. And your behavior is to stop yourself from having that internal self-talk and ask yourself a question. Have I ever done anything where I would say I was effective or kind or whatever that thing is, where I became, in my mind, and could be viewed by somebody else as I am a good person? Now, that is what I refer to sometimes as a thought behavior because it's something that you've done. You've behaved that before. You just didn't associate things and connect the dots,
It's like it's
but
like
it's internal.
behavior you can do even if you're being prideful about a thing.
Yeah,
Even if there's ego involved, doesn't matter. You can just do the thing first. Worry
perfect.
about the ego and pride later.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Is it pride or is it self-confidence? Is it just being firmly
Stubborn.
believing firmly believing in your position? Is that the same as pride?
One of the things that I want to point out here is when you're working with self-confidence, if you're sticking to the mind model of self-confidence is you identifying your own effective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors, which means you must be updating because you can't have one behavior or one thing that you're confident in, and that will last you all of your life necessarily. You have to be able to update. And so that updating is critical. If you are prideful about it, because you've done it once, and this is something I know all too well, this is something that I used to do. If I got something done once, I thought it should last forever. Okay. I just wanted it to, well, I've got that one done. I don't have to do that again in my life. No, that's not how life works. Okay. Life is not fair. Life has these balances in here, and that's a huge chunk of you transitioning and moving yourself to do these things that are updating and keeping yourself current with yourself. And that causes effectively updating yourself keeps you in a place of self-confidence. But if you park yourself, it slowly erodes and breaks down and falls away.
So go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, I was gonna say is I was listening to Blair and I was like thinking what Zach was saying is like coming from a place of certainty. If you have a strong belief and you're holding on to something, you're coming from a place of certainty and a lot of judgment. So you're holding on to it because you don't want to be wrong.
Yep.
You just want to keep that and to be true. So
Yep.
holding on to it. And then so the opposite would be the evaluating and the testing of that you doing the behaviors and then you can and building the self-confidence because you've done the behaviors something to externally verify that you've done something or doing something. Then your belief is then either you know uh, accurate you have, or it wasn't and it needs to be updated. So,
Mhm. Well, another end of this, which kind of goes with what Blair was talking about with confidence versus self-confidence, confidence being others identifying your effective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors. Others can also identify what they see as ineffective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors. And we look at how beliefs drive identity and how identity drives belief. And Becky, when we were talking about this, was saying that she chooses to stay open and curious and test before adopting something as quote unquote me. So for herself, when I look at some of the things that have been said to me over the years, Jacqueline was talking about the label shy. She tested that and discovered that she's not really shy. So we have these things that have become part of our identity through belief systems, and we relate and use the language I am. This is the way I am. I am, and fill in the blank, as opposed to I feel or I think, or is this really me? I can remember sitting down, this was over 10 years ago, sitting down with a woman that I had at one time a great deal of respect for. And she just told me I was a really lousy communicator. And I'm going to say that I disagree with her. I don't think I'm a lousy communicator. I think I'm actually better than average in terms of communication. But for years, because this person I admired and respected said it, for years, I was challenged with, oh my gosh, I'm really not a good communicator because this one person said I'm not a good communicator. So testing that and discovering, I do all right. I speak, I write, I do what we do here. I do all right. Can I grow? Can I improve? Always. But that was one of those things that at the time I didn't bother to test. I just used it to kind of question myself into a doubting place, which took me down into a why hole. I kept looking for the reasons, excuses, rationalizations, and justifications to make me okay again, instead of starting with testing the behavior, testing the label. Is there externally verifiable evidence for my skill as a communicator? And um, so that's just one example. But I think that when people say things to us, it's reasonable to test those things and say, is that really me? Do I want to own that name and label and let it form itself into a belief?
Yep. So
So y'all are looking thoughtful. Leslie, what do you think? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I think so. Um, I don't know why this is coming to mind now. I mean, we're talking over 40 years ago. As a kid working at the exhibition, and one of the one of the stands, one of the attractions, one of the things I was looking after. There were several different things, but um, was the handwriting analysis, and it was a whole bunch of banks that looked like computers and flashing lights and everything. And what you did is you wrote your signature on a piece of card, and they slid it into this drawer and hit the go button, and the the lights would start changing how they would flash and everything, and it would print out. It actually had a line printer, and it would come out with your characteristics. Total BS.
Mhm.
Absolute BS. Because the way that machine worked was that it had a loop of it was a telex printer, and in the back there was when it said print, it would print off a teletape, which is a series of 2 and 3 dots, and then in the middle was a smaller tractor drive that would flow it up, and those 5 dots would tell which letter to print, spaces and everything. It would be very, very basic technology. And it would say, you know, there would be stop print, different signals in there that would work. It was not really a computer, it was a telex machine, and sequenced light flashing. But it said on mine that I was frugal. And for the longest time as a kid, I believed I was frugal until I realized that no, I'm not. I can't hold on to the 25 cents I made delivering papers longer than it took me to get to the store to buy a bag of chips and a pop. You know, it was it was hilarious actually. But there was a point in time that I believed that I was frugal, but I didn't really understand what it wasn't a behavior, it was a thought, but my behavior was not that.
Mhm.
That's one
Why
of the
the heck
things.
I'm thinking about this so many years later? Why did that pop
Well,
into my
it's a great
I have
example.
no idea.
It's a perfect example,
It's
though.
a perfect example. It's a
See, one
great
of the key
example.
things that I have here with beliefs is that you did not have a corresponding behavior with that belief of being frugal. Therefore, it didn't stick. And therefore, it eventually fell out where you realized that's just not you. And that's the whole problem with that mindset model where you're trying to, you will yourself to be something that you're not. And that element of trying to create a belief before the behavior, like, okay, some like I was a mindset coach for 4 years. And the thing that I discovered when my mindset broke was that mindset doesn't work when you need it most. But what part does work is if you have a belief model mindset and you have pre-existing behaviors that actually align with the belief that you're now attempting to believe in, you will appear, it will appear to you that um, mindset works. It appeared like that for me for 4 years. I thought mindset was the best thing since sliced bread until I had my dad went into a coma and my life blew up. And I couldn't get my mindset back no matter what I did. And then going off, I know you guys have heard this a million times, but going off to my mindset trainer, she just told me that I didn't believe enough. Well, you guys know the rest of the story, so I'm not going to fill you in. But the bottom line here is that that's just BS. And the thing here is that mind models have either explicit or implicit behaviors attached to them when you actually learn the mind model. Like, how do you use effective versus ineffective? Well, if you ask yourself the question, and see, asking yourself a question is not a belief, it's a verbal behavior of you asking yourself, is what I'm doing effective or ineffective? And it's externally verifiable because somebody else can give you feedback on that and confirm or deny that, set of behaviors. So it's now observable by somebody else. So all of these things are absolutely critical to have behavior change. I was working with my client earlier today, and he came up with 3 words that he used to describe himself. Unfortunately, those 3 words were incredibly subjective and belief based. And my words, like he asked me, so Blair, what do you base, like when you're down to fundamentals in your life and what do you wind up doing? And I go, well, when I'm rock bottom and I need to sort things out, I'd look at my cash situation first. And then the second thing I look at is my food. I have this weird thing, I know. I'll share it, I'll go public. I have this weird thing where I like having my freezer full of food so I don't starve. Literally. Like I know it's crazy, I won't starve, but when it's not full, I sometimes feel poor. I have that sensation of just not having doing whatever I need. Well, I'm self-employed. So one of the things that I know is it can take between 3 and 6 months to get a new client. So I have to have reserves of both capital and food in this case to make it through the lean times. And I've never run out of food and I've never run out of cash, but I still have that model. And I go, that tells me what I need to do so that I can move forward and replenish, and so that I can get things done in that 6 month period that I know so far I've always been able to do. So just sharing, and that behavior is externally verifiable, and that's where I based everything on. But I have this model of saying I need those physically identifiable things in my life, and all of a sudden I feel relaxed and calm. So anyway, just sharing.
So I want to shift us now, if that's all right.
Yep.
Zach put in the chat that he had to go with some unexpected things. He gave tonight a 9 out of 10. His biggest takeaway was the relationship between belief and opinion and pride versus self-confidence. So he said, thank you. Blair, I'm wondering, would you like to do wrap up? And we have a wrap up question for everybody when it comes to you to name one belief that you've discovered and tested. What was the result of the testing? Was your belief effective or ineffective? So that's what we're going to be looking at. Blair, would you like to go around and do wrap up?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, Shane, I haven't heard anything from you tonight, so I'm going to start with you.
Well, you can start first off by repeating Patty's question.
Okay, so name one belief that you have discovered and tested. What was the result of testing? Was your belief effective or ineffective?
What belief have I
Okay, Blair,
discovered?
there's a request to put that in the chat.
Oh,
Do you know
sure.
how to do that? Put that question in the chat.
Absolutely.
That's kind of one to ponder on, not just hey, yeah, you can answer that right away.
Yeah, it's not necessarily top of mind, is it?
Yeah. Fine.
I'll
Now
give
I
it a minute.
open up the chat and I can't see anybody. Okay. Name one belief you've discovered. Like discovered recently, discovered. I mean, I can go back a little bit, like Leslie was talking a while ago, and I wrote a little bit in my notes, and I think of all the, our kids growing up and our grandkids that are around and, somebody else's label. So the belief I would be that I, was told I'd never, I don't want to say break my family tree. I'd never, we're kind of, I mean, lower middle class growing up. I mean, there's a lot of lean times in my childhood. So the belief that I discovered at that time was that this is my life. This will be, I'm never gonna amount to much. I'm never gonna have any money. I'm never, I'm always gonna be poor. So I guess that belief. Um, I guess it was probably in high school when I really tested that belief, watching my dad. Love my dad. I mean, he's gone now 4 years. I didn't understand how he could work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and not, I mean, at that time in high school making $1,200 a month.
Wow.
And I'm thinking this is what I'm destined if I do what he's doing, just working for somebody else. And so I tested that and I made a decision probably, I mean, before I ever met Christy. I mean, we started our family young, late in our high school career. We're young and have lots of kids. But anyway, I told myself that's not my destiny. That's not who I was going to be. That's not my label for myself. I didn't know those fancy words at that time. So I guess testing that was an ineffective belief that I was told, but I used that to become effective and put us where we are today.
Hmm.
So
Well
that
done.
that question is a mind boggler. Something to really ponder and think about, but it really ties in with the questions that I have is, or what I wrote during you guys talking, is what is my identity? What do I believe? Whose label is that? Is that my label? Somebody else's label? Um, I did want to touch base a little bit about positive reinforcement. There's good and bad positive reinforcement. Like take high school sports, for example. Now the kids that work hard at it, the kids that are good, that have some athletic ability, but then you have the kids that their parent says you can do nothing, you do no wrong, oh, you're just you're a rock star, you're golden, and honestly, they're not that. And so, I believe that children, teenagers can do whatever they put their mind to doing it, but sometimes we give them false hope because they just don't have the athletic ability, and the parents are like holding them up on a cloud when the cloud is going to pop with rain. But I know that kind of sounds judgy, but I don't know where the fine line
No, no,
is.
no. And that's not judgy. That is, I've seen those behaviors. That's externally verifiable. I've seen parents come in and hold their child to a position, put them on a pedestal where the child just cannot perform.
Yeah.
Yet the parents absolutely hold them as of course they're doing wonderfully well.
You can
And
look at
you
that with the America's Got Talent
yeah,
auditions.
in,
I mean,
Shows them.
I love all of our kids. I mean, our kids were not, I mean, they do well in high school sports. We had one play college volleyball. But Chris and I were the ones that, like, hey, if you want this, you got to work for it. And at
yep,
times, like, well, Dad, I'm not getting any playing time. I'm like, well, work harder.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I love you, but I'm not gonna give you false hope and just sit there and believe that I believed I should be here. I should be playing ahead of that girl when you clip. Anyway, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but it's great to see everybody. 9 out of 10 for me tonight, even though I feel a little rusty. I didn't really want to open up my camera because I didn't want to be put on the spot, Patty. So
I
that's,
attempted to
that
respect that. Give
that
our
was
best
that
to
was
Christy, though.
judgment of myself.
Give her best to Christy and let her know she's missed, okay?
She's on
Yep.
YouTube. We're just it's just
All right.
busy time of the year, getting cow work done and all that good stuff. So
No
Okay.
worries.
Well, it's very good to see you again.
yeah,
Yep.
good to see you
How's the
guys.
shoulder? Not good. Okay.
Not good. Not
Okay.
good.
Okay. Okay. Next. So, I'm going to pick on Brent next. So there's the question. Do you need
Yeah.
wrap up?
Uh, yeah. So question, man. Yeah, it's a thinker. For recently, for more recent times, to find out what's more a belief, most times it's just, doing things and testing. So, difficult to fill in the beliefs. But I remember before this is like really used to be hard on myself and have the belief that like I wasn't good enough, like I wasn't meant to succeed in sports, almost as if I was meant to like do it, but not quite get there where, the finish, like fail, like fall short. And I remember that. And I'm like, I don't like, I couldn't tell you where it was coming from. It was just something that was there, but, um, and then you end up behaving to that, that belief. And I did find that like at some later on, like a little bit after, like what was the difference between me, that belief, and then somebody else who made it. It was one the belief, but then the behaviors that had led to like that belief influenced the behaviors, and then it just
Yeah.
reinforced the belief that yeah, that's true, because those are the behaviors, that's what was happening. So it was, although I it was so it was harder for me to evaluate because I did well, but I still had that belief. So it was as if I was had some self-sabotage going on, a little bit holding back. So it was like it's there, but then something would happen and wouldn't quite get to the full potential, as do you pick up what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that was the one thing. So that was that after that, that was at the time I didn't, this was before my model. So I did evaluate and I did look at it. I go, okay, yeah, that was the belief I had, but it wasn't true necessarily because you know, it had influenced my behaviors. That was a difference between, um, a lot of, some players that had to, got to exceed to a higher level than others. It wasn't all the performance, but it was all, stuff that was in their head that was impacting their actual behaviors.
Yep.
And then it was just reinforcing their belief. Um, so that's what I did. But to leave from that, that was something I had worked to get rid of, that wasn't there. Like it didn't lead to like, oh yeah, I can do wonderful things and succeed. It was just, oh hey, this this belief and then the behaving to self-sabotage is very ineffective. So that was one to put aside, and it was a lot harder, a lot more difficult to put aside if it's a habit built up over years. So it was a lot more difficult. But then when you get to as I got older and get my models, it's much easier to move past that. So, um, I I would say I enjoyed this belief, the behavior and belief. It get more into a part that we haven't before on behavior and belief,
Yep.
and
Correct.
then being able to see where those beliefs and that you can get stuck into, where it gets into the whys, the just believing and then the excuses, and you're holding on to that something, and it can really drive you to being stuck in one position without testing and evaluating. Um, is this true? Is this, and then is this effective? Is it not? So then impacting your behaviors. But it was interesting on what was there was something I picked up. Um, oh, the identity piece. Like I remember Becky mentioning it, but Patty had that, like your beliefs had drive your identity, and then that identity can drive the beliefs, that you hold on to. Similar with behaviors, you have a belief, but then drives it, drives the behavior, and then the behavior reinforces that belief. So it's just that cyclical nature of the two. So it can really get you into that spiral. If that's the, if that's the case, get you into that spiral. The white hole will get you down and get you stuck. So I would give it a 9. Well, 9.2. 9.2. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well,
Jacqueline, can I call upon you? Would you care to participate?
Sure. So what I've noticed during this, I actually had to write a couple of little words down here to keep me on track. So with this label shy and this other label, I'm thinking maybe possibly just grabbed out of thin air and labeled it as social anxiety. So I'm thinking to myself, the relationship between those two words, how am I going to define, how will social anxiety look? Will I, by the end of this next event, I'm going to a funeral on Thursday. So I think this is going to be a major opportunity to check out this. Is it social anxiety, or is it something else? Or is it just the shy label halted me so much? It can be interpreted as social anxiety, but it was a belief that may not be real, because I think, well, I chat to people in the grocery store, usually hi on the street, or I like this, or make a comment. So it's interesting how the shy label and the social anxiety label are affecting and influencing one another. They're getting all mixed up. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to maybe discover another label, because I've moved away from the shy. I don't necessarily want to be social anxiety. Anyway, so what that all does is like Shannon was explaining about, it's kind of like fun, like it I don't feel uncomfortable today, right here, right now. Maybe an hour before the event, I'll probably be freaking out. I don't know. We'll see. But and how we were talking about beliefs and certainties. I have a tendency more to try to, when I discover a belief, now try to look for clarity, because I think that's kind of what was happening with the shy thing. I've actually stopped and looked for clarity. Like I was treating it as a certain. Anyway, so, and I also find that working from the clarity seeking results, that I feel more self-confident in it, because I've got this amazing network and bundle of stuff to support me. The mind models, they can just support me through this. So that's kind of what I got out of tonight. Was a 9 out of 10.
Awesome. Thank you. Leslie, would you care to contribute tonight in a wrap up?
Certainly. Thank you. A belief that I've discovered and tested. There's a couple that I've been ruminating while listening. um, and I'm trying to think which would be the most important one. That was the most effective. And I think it is the belief that I had for many years that I had PTSD. And used it as a crutch, used it as an excuse for some of my bad behaviors at times. And it yeah, it wasn't always good. Yes, I have lived through some pretty darn traumatic situations. Um, and uh, then, thank you, Blair. We had a conversation where you showed me that no, I don't have PTSD. It was like, what? How could I not? I've been living like this for so long, decades. January 14th, 1988, to be precise. But to have learned and then to have evaluated and worked through that, to that I don't have PTSD, has been literally phenomenal. Um, Huge transition in my thinking and allowing me to um, grow and develop and pay attention to things that were much more important. Um, Being able to learn more about these mind models and using them as an evaluation. Um, IBER has in the past few months has become an exceptional tool. I've been using the three E's for a longer period of time. But those three E's also help me better understand IBER. And yeah, it's remarkable. So that's how my belief structure has changed from largely a negative to a positive. Tonight is a 10. Let's make it 11.
Okay.
It's been very, very valuable. Patty and Shannon, when you were talking there, right? You two blow me away. um, Profound intelligence. Thank you.
That's very kind. You're welcome.
Mhm. Thank you, Leslie. Shannon, would you care to wrap up tonight?
Yes, sir. This question was fascinating because I started jotting down things that were really like intense and unpleasant parts of my childhood. But then the more I started jotting things down, because I was like, I have entirely too many examples of this. And the more I was jotting down, the lighter they became. And I realized what a profound thing has happened. I mean, it's really like Brent said, we haven't spent this much time on this subject in quite some time. And to realize the role that testing and learning names and labels and checking things out over the course of the years, what that's done to help me unpack my mind and not only get to know myself better, but cultivate alignment with myself. And it's really fascinating. Like I could go through each of these and some of them are really unpleasant. But then I'm like, oh, this is what we did, and I learned about this. And I actually have had people say this. And then I checked it out and that's not true. And, things of that nature. The one that keeps coming to mind to share tonight, is a part of my story that keeps like coming up in the present a little bit. And when I was 19, I had bacterial meningitis, and that can be fatal to individuals or significantly lots of issues.
Yeah.
And I'm here. I did not die. But what happened was the doctor that I saw after that told me whatever wasn't better in 12 to 18 months never would be. She told me to quit both of my jobs, drop out of college, and rest in a dark room, photosensitivity, auditory sensitivity, some cognitive processing things and of that nature. And so I did what she said. And spoiler alert, I was not better. I was much worse and in a very dark hole that I had exactly no idea how to get out of. And letting her was the first, I did not even have the tools to challenge her name and label that this is what you are. Your life is basically over and you're a young adult. Thankfully, I had a team, a parental unit that did the challenging and testing of those names and labels for me. But that taught me how to do that. And over the years, watching what my parents had done to support me, and then seeing actually, no, I am capable of this. I am capable of this. I can relearn how to drive. I can relearn how to read. I can relearn this, this, and this. I can relearn how to learn. And it was this whole fascinating thing. So I've been going through, about 2 years ago, maybe 3. Who can do math these days? But I got a concussion. And it was so many of the same like symptoms, and it was really a challenge to heal from the concussion and some of the visual issues I'm still having from that. And so my doctor, my eye doctor, some of the things I've been working through visually have not been as effective as I had hoped. And so she was chatting with me and was like, well, this is normal for people with, brain trauma. And I literally, in my mind, I'm like, so what does that have to do with me? Like, I didn't own it. I literally, and then it took me all the way home to realize I've had brain trauma because I spent over 10 years trying to separate myself from the names and labels that other people had put on me that put me and my behaviors in my life and what I could do in a box, that I had to realize, okay, so there's a part of the label that after testing it and going through all these things to sift it, and I needed to set aside the part that was like, your life is over, because she was wrong. That is radically inaccurate, and I'm capable of so much. I'd had people tell me to go on disability and quit and do all the things, and that's obviously not what I chose to do. And I have a wonderful job and a wonderful life, and all of you have helped me get there. But there's parts, obstacles, and challenges that I'm still attempting to overcome. And so it was checking, externally verifying, okay, yes, in fact, my brain has had traumatic things happen to it. That did happen. But it's not so much using that information to put myself in a box as it is using that information to help myself identify a more effective way forward. And so it's like, yes, some of the fact that there are things that take me longer that I do judge myself for. And it's like, all right, I can look at that and say, actually, it's not uncommon for these things to take longer. You can continue to work at that and smooth that process out. So it's in some ways, it's an effective and an ineffective. You can see how the box is there, but you can also see how adding clarity, the difference that I really liked, you guys were going through the difference between I am versus I feel or I think. And it reminded me of separating the person from the problem. And Blair, your analogy ages ago of the shirt, I am not my shirt. I can take my shirt off and choose to put on something else. And that moment where I chose to take off, my life is over. I can't do anything. 1,500 million different tests at trying to find a career that I could keep my health going and still be successful at, and all of those things. It's not who you are. You can test and you can take the data from one test and carry that forward to the next, like our little squiggly upward line from several weeks ago. So that was, it's an interesting thing because I do need the context that the externally verifiable experiences provide, but to not own that as who I am, to use that context to cultivate seeking clarity, like Jackie was talking about, and alignment with myself. And I still have, it's one of the fun things is cultivating at least 3 resources at any time. And so at the end of the whole ride home, after I'd finally cognitively accepted the fact that I did in fact have brain trauma, how many years later, I was like, all right, yeah, so that really doesn't impede our journey at all, because it's like, all right, so what else is there? Well, we haven't gone down this path. We haven't looked at this under this rock. We haven't climbed up this tree. And there are many more paths and rocks and trees, to look under and climb. And so it's that line to walk with yourself and realizing the importance. Am I okay with myself right now? Do these things fit? Do they not fit? And if they don't fit, that's okay. And if they do fit, that's okay too. Don't let that stop you from continuing on. Like, it doesn't have to be the end of the road. So that was one that I thought from the past that still connected through to the present, because the beliefs can be effective and ineffective. And sometimes they're both, but it's what you choose to do about it. And, it is what it is. I can't change that those things happened to my brain, but I can choose what I do with my brain from here on out. So it was interesting, but just in my own notes and while I was jotting down ideas, looking at the layers of things. And now I ask myself things like, the questions about challenging names and labels. I look for things. Am I really an extrovert? Do I really have social anxiety? The fun kinds of conversations that we stir up, and it's not just unpacking negative and painful things now. It's a curious thing. It's like, how can I get to know myself better? And does this really fit? And you just refine it more and go from general to more specific. And as the years go on, maybe something fit a year ago that doesn't fit today. So
Right.
your point about updating is also just extremely fun and important, because it gives you the chance, to connect with yourself in a different way. So, I mean, I remember, growing up years and years, my competitive dance studio, I was never strong. I was never strong enough to anybody. I was this person. I was the hard worker. I was whatever, but I was never strong. And as an adult, I've had so many things. Some of them are pictures of things I've taken of myself. And then I look at that, I'm like, actually, those are muscles. That's really hard to do. And I just did that. I am strong. So what the role is in updating and bringing yourself with you
Yeah.
through life is it's really, so this was a really great, this will be like I don't do 10s very often, but this will be a 10 for me.
Cool. Cool. For me, I'm going to go back to one that happened shortly after I got divorced, and I got feedback, and I've shared this before. And it was when I got divorced, I did not, like, I was divorced at 64, and I did not know if I had any sexual currency whatsoever. Um, was I attractive enough to actually even get a date? Um, well, I was prepared to risk that and risk rejection. But instead, I found that um, women tended to find me attractive. And that was a shock. And in fact, women started calling me handsome. And I did not, I realized I relate to handsome. I didn't relate to my ex calling me cute. That was not something that resonated with me. I've said this before, but cute is like a little boy. I didn't feel manly when I was called cute. I felt like a little boy. But when I tested it and found out and took the risk that I was handsome, or, you know, these women viewed me as handsome, and I've had lots of women tell me I am. So I believe that to be true from their perspective. So that's good. And yeah, that's testing it. That shifted a lot inside of me in terms of who I was, what I can do, and how I am, and what I can get back to. My first hip replacement, I was worried about how I would be because, 3 weeks in, it was not healing, it was not perfect, it was not whatever it was. But, 6 weeks I was driving, 3.5, 4 months in, I was walking near normally, but I needed to get my other hip done. And so I had about a week and a half, 2 weeks of me walking absolutely normally again. And then I get and blow up the second hip with another hip replacement. But this time I have the history of what happened. And I go, yeah, well, I do the exercises, I put in the time. This too shall heal. So for me tonight, understanding the behaviors that drive beliefs. And Shannon, your wrap up tonight is in your stories. Was constantly all the behaviors that you were doing that absolutely shifted the belief. In fact, everybody's story thus far was about the behaviors that they did that shifted their belief. And just noticing the flow of what that was when I was developing all of this stuff, I just took what was externally verifiable in people. And the thing that always changed behavior, or the thing that always changed a person's belief, was their behavior. And when they chose to believe something and tried to be positive and everything else, occasionally that worked, but usually it didn't. So something's wrong with that model, hence the mind models. So for me, I also discovered one other thing, and I think I might have mentioned it to you, Patty, and if I didn't, I will right now. I think we should be doing a BDE on hope and how hope fits in, because we need to use our emotions effectively so that we can build on and towards our future. But if we use negative feelings, it actually doesn't work. So things break down for us. Anyway, that was it for me. You know, 9.5 out of 10 for me tonight. And Patty, would you be so kind as to do your wrap up and take us out?
Yes. Do you have a slide to put up for that?
I do. Do you want me to put it up now or after your?
Yes, now would be great.
Okay, great. I will do
Now
that
would be great.
right now.
So, if you are on YouTube, we would really appreciate you commenting, like, or subscribing. We are here every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Blair does have something called the Insider Notes. Every episode from 318 on, and tonight is 369. So what does that make? About 50 sets of notes there. You can go deeper on this topic because we never cover everything that we put together in our agenda. So those are
58.
$25 a month or $300 a year. And again, for the My Model Method coaching, it's in person in Arizona, January 5 through 8 and 13 through 16. Blair has a couple of books if you want to learn more. His Ultimate Mind Hacking and Phobia Freedom Formula, both available on Amazon. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. and hope that we will see you all next week. Take care now.
Take care, everybody.
Did you give your wrap up though, Mom?
I didn't, but
Oh, do you want to?
well, my example I already gave when we were talking about the communication, and for me, it was about a 9 tonight. So really appreciated people's stories. I love hearing what people have done to make their lives better and how they've overcome the names and labels that don't work for them.
Mhm.
So y'all take care. We'll see you next week.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.